Your government, honestly, is detached from reality and completely self-absorbed. All you have to do is listen to any interview from Minister Patrick Donoghue, or indeed your Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, to come to this conclusion. A recent Eurostat report revealed by the European Commission has revealed that Ireland was the most expensive EU country in terms of cost of living, the most expensive. Ireland was found to be a staggering 40% higher than the EU average in 2021, and matters are significantly worse since then, as we all know. The Eurostat report also revealed, astonishingly, that Ireland was 88.5% higher than the EU average for housing, and a staggering 88% higher for utility bills such as electricity and gas. The average cost of food here was 17% higher than the EU 27 countries. That's the figures we're talking about. For milk, cheese and for eggs, found to be an average of 25% higher. Bills, fats and everything else 22% higher on oils, while breads and cereals are typically 20% higher. Despite Ireland's crippling cost of living, the EU government has failed to act in any meaningful way, while the EU governments have taken many measures to cut VAT and excise duties. We in Rural Independence have brought forward motions, so have other groups, and last night there was another vote, a Sinn Féin motion. We also moved a P&B motion last April, asking the government to axe the carbon tax, which would have the impact of putting about 8,000 directly into every person's pocket and knock 10 cents off the price of a litre of fuel by 2030, but that was rejected. The government have remained tone deaf on many issues, despite the people suffering. As I said, the current cost of living crisis is financially crippling lower income earners, including pensioners, struggling mortgage holders and, of course, the unemployed. It is also having a disproportionate impact on all residents and farmers across the country. The heavier the impact of the crisis on rural holders has even been much higher, research has shown, and we all know that. We're listening to people every day of the week. Rural communities and Irish farmers are faced with crippling costs for feeds, fertilisers and fuel, which has the potential to wipe out many viable farms, and that is the fact of it. Your government brought in an inept package, I would call, and you're trying to play a trick on the people, a hard trick of bringing in these little measures while you're taking so much excise duty on every litre of fuel. And the public have copped onto this. So you're going with the tax receipts that you're getting in, revenues you're getting in, on the back of people's misery. And not since, as I said, the British landlords would turn their eyes the other way in time of the famine, has any government been so harsh, so inept at dealing with the problems, and so uncaring about the people of Ireland. It's shocking.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thanks, Deputy. I had a chance to read in detail the Eurostat report there the other day, and it is worth reading in detail. It tells us the cost of living in Ireland is high, much higher than the European average. I don't think that would come as a surprise to anybody. That was well known already. But when you drill into the detail, it tells a slightly more complex story. There are countries where the cost of living is higher than Ireland. They include Norway, Switzerland, Iceland. There are countries that are similar, Sweden, Denmark, for example, Luxembourg, and there are countries where the cost of living is much lower than Ireland, Turkey, Bulgaria and Romania. And what's missing, I think, sometimes from the analysis and commentary around the report is the acknowledgement that salaries and wages in Ireland are much higher than the European average, about 36% higher than the European average. And there is a correlation between high pay, high income, high standard of living countries where costs are higher, and countries where there's low pay, low standards of living where costs were lower. And I'd certainly prefer to aspire to be in that group of high income Northern European countries, even if it comes with higher prices, than to be a low income, low cost country. And I think that's been missed from the analysis around that report. There's a clear correlation there between higher salaries, higher prices and higher standards of living on the one hand, and low prices, low pay and low standards of living on the other. I think you're absolutely correct in terms of the impact that high energy prices have had on people in Ireland and across the country. But your suggestion that we've done nothing is totally incorrect. We've reduced excise and diesel to the lowest allowed under European rules. We've reduced excise and petrol by 20 cents. And if you look at the price of petrol and diesel north of the border, in Britain, in France, in Netherlands, in Switzerland, all of Western Europe, it's roughly the same or higher over there than it is here. We've reduced VAT on electricity and gas to 9%, the lowest ever rate that we've had since VAT was invented on electricity and gas, and taken the €200 off people's bills. And as we make the plans for the budget now, we particularly want to focus on those areas where costs are out of line with comparable countries in Northern Europe, in areas like childcare and public transport, education and rent, and see what we can do about those in particular.
Deputy McGrath.
So you're reading for your report, you're telling us the Eurostat report is not accurate, and other places took more action. No place took any lesser action than we took here, because you can do it. And fuel. Look at the price of, in some countries of fuel, down to $1.39 a litre, because you want your greedy paws on the VAT and excise duties, which you failed to remove because of the money coming in to keep, yes, higher wages, and to give you a 70 million increase annually to the higher civil servants last week to return it. You called it not a pay increase, a pay return. And to hell with the Indini Bioga, to hell with the little people. They're the people that are suffering, and they're not evaluating the Eurostat report like you are to find and cherry-pick the good bits. They know the pain and suffering that they're going through. They know how uncaring your government and that of Fianna Fáil and the Green government, supported by selective independence as well, they care little about them. And Táisín Fanachling, they're waiting for you because you refuse to act, you won't act, and you seem to be unable to act. And that's the sad situation. We cannot wait for a budget in October because, as we know, and the public know, any measures in that will help the public won't come into effect until the following January or maybe the following April. So leave horse, you get grass. That's not going to cut it anymore. Do something meaningful for the people that we are supposed to represent, that you're elected to represent now.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thanks, Deputy. The Eurostat report is entirely accurate. What I'm saying is it's half the story. Income, salaries, wages in Ireland are 30 to 40% higher than the European average. And of course, there's a correlation between that and higher prices. Countries with a very low cost of living in that report are Bulgaria, Romania, Turkey, other countries where there's very low pay. And of course, the price of something in a restaurant or a shop is going to be lower if the people there are paid €1.50 an hour or €2 an hour. So, you know, we need to look at these things in the round when you look at these reports and analyse them properly and not so simplistically as they have been, I think, in recent times. We have acted, Deputy. We acted in January with an increase in the minimum wage, reductions in income tax, increases in the pension and welfare. We've acted since then, effectively, a mini-budget or emergency budget, cuts in excise on petrol and diesel, €200 off people's electricity bills, an increase in the fuel allowance, VAT cut to 9% on electricity and gas. Other measures will kick in across the summer, like the back-to-school clothing and footwear allowance, like the increase in the SUSI grant, and we'll come back in the autumn with more measures, some of which will take effect within weeks, and others which will take effect in January, because this is going to be an ongoing cost of living crisis. It's not going to end quickly, unfortunately, and that's why we need planned actions in the way that we propose.